Zimbabwe is targeting to import at least 300,000 metric tons of grain in 2022, following a poor summer cropping season. Maize, which is the country's staple food, is expected to decline in production for 2021-2022 season to 43% of the previous season's output.
2021-2022 agricultural season was characterized by the late start of the rains, which were received in the last week of December 2021. Rainfall distribution was poor in both space and time. This late onset of the rains caused late plantings, which were later affected by the prolonged dry spell. Some farmers were also forced to make several replantings as a result of poor crop establishment and the false start to the season. Late rains were received in April 2022, and the impact of these late rains have not yet been captured. Maize production, the estimate for this season is 1,557,914 metric tons. And this is about 43% lower than the 2,717,171 metric tons which were produced in the 2020-2021 season.
The geopolitical developments in Eastern Europe, particularly the Russia-Ukraine conflict, have also affected the global supply of wheat. Zimbabwe is also among the African countries that heavily depend on wheat imports from this region.
It's been geopolitics, and that has affected largely the triple Fs. The triple Fs of food, fertilizer and fuel. And this we've seen throughout the world. For Zimbabwe, the major sources of wheat, should there be a local shortfall, is the Ukraine-Russia region, which accounts for 30% of the world wheat exports, about 20% of the maize exports, and close to 80% of sunflower exports. And then the other region is, of course, Canada. And if we look at wheat, the challenge is bigger for Zimbabwe because the concentration risks in those two areas.
However, the authorities allayed fears of stable maize shortages, but called on country's farmers to shift their focus on wheat production.
We are now carrying a stock as a result of the stellar performance last year of maize and traditional grains, currently of just over 500,000 metric tons. So there is no, I think it is not advisable to concentrate on winter maize when we have a carryover stock. And if you look at the shortfall of maize that we have this year, it can easily be covered by the strategic grain reserve. In fact, if you put the numbers together, you will see that the production of cereals this year and the strategic grain reserve will result in a small surplus of 109,000 metric tons. Why we want the importation that was highlighted by the chairperson of 300,000 metric tons of maize is to replenish the strategic grain reserve, but we have sufficient cereals within the country, even without importing, to be able to feed ourselves to the next harvest.
The poor crop yields in Zimbabwe means a lot more households will require food assistance up to 2023. Low-income households in both rural and urban areas will be worse affected. Khumalo, SABC News.